MK9 is the first NRS game and a narrative continuation from Armageddon, while also functioning as a hard reboot for the franchise. By sending a message to the past, Dark Raiden is able to influence his younger self's actions during the events of MKs 1 through 3, changing the course of the story for this second timeline drastically. At the time of its release, MK9 was praised for its story mode, which is a truly fantastic one, and for its approach towards characterization. This extends to the endings, which are presented in a far better way than vs. DC, with these, for a time, updated, shifting portraits, replacing the typical MK approach of having one or two static images for each ending. I always loved the way each character's animation upon defeating Shao Kahn reflected their emotions following the fight, which is a small touch that has never been done in any MK game since. Rebooting the franchise gave NRS writers more liberty to approach classic characters in new ways, and many times their approach resolves a key quest for the character in question that they'd never been able to do up until that point. These types of endings are mixed in with a few endings that put Shao Kahn on top, and some that hint at the future of the franchise. During the 3D era, these hints always contributed to the greater plot of Onaga's return and the Temple of Argus. However, in MK9, there really isn't anything like that. It's clear NRS put a premium on fan service for this reboot, which makes a lot of sense, but since I became a fan during the 3D era, I was hoping to see more things typical from the endings of that era. I remember being flatly disappointed with some of these endings, which was never the case for me through MK4, Deadly Alliance, and Deception, because even the endings that were bad for the character they were tied to still progressed either the macro plot or overarching lore of the franchise. With the power of hindsight, you're watching Real Games, and in this video, I'm going to rank all of the endings from MK9. I'll be looking at each ending in terms of how much it matches the character in question, its place in the second timeline era of the lore, and its presentation. With all of that established, let's dive right in. Number 32.
The loss of friends and allies during the battle with Shao Kahn took its toll on Sonya Blade's sanity. She left the Special Forces and went into seclusion to cope with her grief. But her solitude was brief, as she found herself regularly visited by an apparition who claimed to be her missing father. With her father as a guide, Sonya embarked on a mission to exterminate what remained of Shao Kahn's army.
I appreciate NRS trying to make Sonya less one-dimensional than she is in older MK titles. Adding her father to the franchise might have been a cool idea, and another option presented by this ending is something like adding ghostly-type moves to Sonya's military arsenal. That's not what would end up happening though, because the dynamism of Sonya's characterization would come from her marriage and subsequent divorce from Johnny Cage, and her being Cassie Cage's mother. As such, this ending doesn't do anything for Sonya really, or for her place in the franchise, and it is lame to see her experience a psychotic break following the defeat of Shao Kahn. Number 31. This is the only ending that is completely wordless, but I don't necessarily believe this ending is worse for it. It is cool seeing Shao Kahn morph into Cyber Sub-Zero, and while I was at the time of MK9's release disappointed to see Sub-Zero become a cyber ninja and canonically die in the campaign, I think NRS should have stuck to their guns. Imagine where the franchise and story could have gone if NRS took this opportunity to focus on 3D era characters for MKX and forward, making a handful of new ones to further flesh out its new plot. One of Mortal Kombat's biggest story issues is the way that it refuses to let characters die anymore, which is antithetical to the core conceit of the franchise, that everyone, even gods, can die in a martial contest with mortals. My point with all of this is to say that Cyber Khan Zero should have been a character in MKX, and it would have been a better explanation of his power being reduced canonically, which is never really properly explained in MK11. This one is low on the list for not what happens in it, but because of the missed opportunity it presents. Number 30.
Shao Kahn's violent death shook the very core of Smoke's being and dislodged his earliest memories. Tomas Rabada was only a boy when he was abducted by an obscure cult and sacrificed to a demon. Burned alive, he returned to the mortal realm as an Anenra, a creature of smoke and vapor. His captors were helpless against his shapeless form as he lashed out with rage, killing them all. His murder avenged, he returned to his human form, remembering nothing of his former life. Now aware of his true identity, Smoke understands he is no mere assassin. His destiny has been revealed.
Just like with Cyber Sub-Zero, Smoke's ending is cool in concept, but is never properly executed upon. The origin of Smoke's power being from a demon is legitimately so cool, but minus one line of pre-fight banter in MKX's story, this lore point is completely abandoned to the point where it is no longer a part of his backstory in MK1. I'm actually sad I'm putting this, the next, and the previous endings so low on this list because, with a little conviction from NRS, these would have made some awesome long-term lore changes for these characters and their place in the macro narrative of MK. Number 29.
Shao Kahn was defeated, but the intense battle rendered Jade unconscious. She slipped into a dreamlike state and found herself walking in an unknown realm. As she explored, her surroundings shifted and changed. Jade approached a lone figure who stood in the distance, a shimmering woman. She did not reveal her name, but spoke with an air of regal authority. Through the minds of countless mortals, the woman had been watching events as they unfolded over the centuries. She informed Jade that Shao Kahn's death was an outcome that must be reimagined. Jade was defenseless as the woman possessed her body and emerged in the waking world.
Just like the last two, Jade's ending here seems like it's setting up the next major villain in the franchise, much in the same way Reptile's Deadly Alliance one sets up Onaga. As such, this mysterious woman has of yet not mattered in the lore of the series, and that's a crying shame, especially since Kronika is such a terrible villain and an even worse nuker of the lore. Number 28.
Shao Kahn was dead. The god of war had prevailed. The spell that had summoned him began to reverse itself. As he slowly faded from this place and time, Kratos was approached by Raiden and Fujin. Though he did not count them among his enemies, Kratos had never been beloved by these gods. He prepared for combat. To his surprise, they bowed to him. A show of respect he had not seen from an immortal in many an age. Raiden explained that though his motives were not pure, Kratos had saved Earthrealm. He was owed a debt of gratitude. As he returned to his own world, Kratos nodded silently. Their change of heart would perhaps prove useful one day. A debt of gratitude is often dearly paid.
Guest characters in fighting games are cool, and I'm fine with one or two being on every combat cast. Since MKX, NRS has started to prioritize guest characters too much, but at the time of MK9's release, the inclusion of Kratos on the PS3 version was an awesome thing. Classic Kratos fits right in with Mortal Kombat's vibe, but his ending is pretty lackluster. He doesn't really accomplish anything, and a guest character's ending should never feel like a cliffhanger. We all know they're not returning to the next game after all. At least the other guest character in this game has a far, far better ending. Number 27.
Shao Kahn was gone, but the scars of the merging of realms remained. Remnants of the invasion force roamed freely and had to be dealt with. But Earthrealm is vast, and Raiden is but one being. He recruited 4 warriors, one for each direction of the wind, and divided his soul, placing one part in each of them. Through these new heroes, Raiden can combat the forces of darkness in 4 places at once.
Man, this Raiden ending is a pretty big step down from most of his. It is a step up from vs. DC, but that statement is literally worth nothing at the bank, because nearly every character has a bad or lackluster ending in that game. I suppose this ending does foreshadow the entrance of 4 new fighters to the franchise, who would end up being the Kombat Kids, but that's essentially all it has going for it. Number 26.
It took all of Nightwolf's power to destroy Shao Kahn. His spirit guide, the Wolf, had aided him in the battle, but in the aftermath its presence was no longer felt. Nightwolf returned to his home, seeking the Elder's help in reconnecting to the spirit world. During their ritual, his wolf returned to him, changed. Shao Kahn had tethered his soul to the wolf spirit in order to cheat death. Now corrupted with Shao Kahn's evil, Nightwolf has transformed into his animality, his bite converting his victims into subservient lycanthropes. Through Nightwolf, Shao Kahn will conquer Earthrealm, one mortal at a time.
Every MK game has to have the primary villain winning in an ending cutscene from time to time, and this one, while hokey, feels like it's in the realm of possibility for Shao Kahn after his defeat. If anything, I'm more angry watching this cutscene with the knowledge that NRS would destroy Kahn's characterization in MK11 and MK1, and as such, this is the point in the list where I consider all of the endings from this point forward, going from being okay like this one, to great like some of the ones coming up. If you're liking the video so far, please drop a comment, smash that like button, and subscribe. I love making my videos and would love more people to see them. With that, let's get back to the ranking, shall we? Number 25.
Kitana had ended Shao Kahn's life for his betrayal. She had discovered the truth about Mileena, but rather than slay her as well, she took pity on her half-sister. She offered Mileena a home within the Edenian aristocracy. She was, after all, of royal blood. Mileena cautiously accepted her sister's invitation. With Mileena and Jade at her side, Kitana formed a fighting force dedicated to bringing justice to the realms. Never again would a warlord arise to create such terror.
It is interesting seeing Kitana bury the hatchet with Mileena and becoming a Charlie's Angels-esque feminine fighting force, and I do like the subtle reference to their Shaolin monks boss fight in the final frame by pairing them with the location in which Liu Kang and Kung Lao fight them for their first boss fight. I feel like Jade doesn't need to die this time around though. Number 24.
After the invasion was thwarted, many of Jax's allies had seemingly disappeared, leaving him to clean up the mess on his own. He searched for Shao Kahn's remaining forces, utilizing a new cyber scanner designed to remotely access worldwide databases. Navigating its virtual reality interface, Jax inadvertently accessed Kano's brain through his optical laser implant. Their minds linked, Jax virtually battled Kano. Finally, he captured and quarantined Kano's consciousness within the Special Forces mainframe. The dangerous criminal had finally been neutralized.
There's nothing bad with this ending, but it's worse than Kano's, which is set up by it. Being the first act in a 2-part saga, poor Jax here doesn't even know that this is not going to be a good ending for him. Number 23.
Victory over Shao Kahn came with a heavy price. Cabal's respirator was badly damaged, and if it was not repaired soon, he would surely die. Desperate, he tracked down Kano and forced from him the identity of the cyberneticist who developed Kano's eye laser. The good doctor was not easy to find, but he was more than eager to help, for a price. Now Cabal is rebuilt. He is better than he was before. Stronger, faster. He will need to be in order to repay his debt.
Cabal being kitted out with a full suit of cybernetic armor and enhancements is hella cool, and I really hope NRS adds his look here as a costume for him in whatever his next entry to the franchise is. Number 22.
Melina killed the Emperor in a fit of deranged fury, but she was unaware that her victory resulted from Shang Tsung's designs. He had imbued Melina with the ability to drain Shao Kahn's dark magic, rendering him vulnerable. Now Shang Tsung was ready to execute the next phase of his plan: murder Melina and take Shao Kahn's power for himself. But Melina instinctively wielded her new dark power against the sorcerer. Shang Tsung's end came quickly. Melina absorbed his soul, multiplying her strength. She then set out to claim an even bigger prize, the soul of a Thunder God.
Oh geez, putting a Melina ending this low hurts my soul. NRS had to contrive a lot of reasons for the villains in Shao Kahn's camp to betray and kill their emperor, and I think they did a pretty good job here with Melina. However, I don't really like the way this ending functions as a cliffhanger, as if Melina is actually going to have a rivalry with Raiden in the next game. I knew even when I first played this that this ending really wasn't going to go anywhere. Number 21.
As the last remnants of Shao Kahn disintegrated, Johnny felt strange, as if he had lost control of his body. Suddenly, powerful energy burst forth, destroying everything around him. Johnny sought the aid of Raiden and Nightwolf, but their efforts did nothing to stop these random spasms of destruction. Desperate, Raiden transported Johnny to Sado, the realm of order, where he could be taught to control his power. Johnny Cage will transform into a warrior powerful beyond mortal imagining.
This ending sets up Cage's rise to prominence during MKX and MK11. Maybe I'm in the minority because I hear a lot of complaints regarding his green anti-god power, but I actually really like Cage's character growth throughout the second timeline. Like with many things, I just wish NRS had stuck to the guns and not made Cage's growth irrelevant with the inclusion of Kronika and the second resetting of the timeline. Number 20.
Kano made a fortune selling arms to Shao Kahn and used the profits to upgrade his cybernetics. The added connectivity of his eye implant gave him unparalleled access to global communications. Using his mind, he navigated the databases of banks, law enforcement agencies, and other networks. But his activities left him vulnerable to hackers. Jax infiltrated Kano's mind and trapped his consciousness in the Special Forces mainframe. It wasn't long, however, until Kano managed to free himself. His consciousness spread like a virus throughout the Special Forces network of automated weaponry. Kano has become a one-man army.
Kano becomes Skynet in this ending, and it's a great one for him as a result. Kano's whole shtick is about betting on himself and getting more power and money that way. And while the pleasures of the flesh will forever be denied him now, he's definitely able to satisfy his greed and gluttony as an amorphous internet menace. Number 19.
Quan Chi should never have resurrected Noob Saibot, nor should he have enhanced his power to defeat Shao Kahn. The Revenant he created had broken free of his control. Noob had secretly formed an understanding with a cleric from the realm of chaos and opened for him a portal to the Netherrealm. Shinnok, Quan Chi, and the Brotherhood of Shadow were unprepared as the forces of chaos overwhelmed them, leaving the underworld severely weakened. Satisfied with his work, the cleric, Havoc, returned to the realm of chaos. Noob Saibot remained, to seize control of the Netherrealm.
Havok showing up here made me excited that the 3D era characters I know and love would start mixing in with the classic characters, creating a new angle for the Shinnok and Deception eras of the lore to be viewed through. While that wouldn't end up happening, this ending is a great one for Noob, and does hint at the idea of the Netherrealm throne being a major point of conflict in the next game. Number 18.
Shang Tsung voraciously consumed Shao Kahn's soul, absorbing his immense power. Overwhelmed by his newfound sorcery, he fled to Outworld. Moments before suicide, Shang Tsung was visited by Bo Raicho. The mentor of warriors offered to teach him to control the dark magic, but for a special purpose. Liu Kang had become a god. The power had corrupted him, transforming him into a tyrant. He needed to be stopped. After rigorous training, Shang Tsung mastered the one technique that could finish Liu Kang. Vengeance would finally be his.
I do like the inversion of Shang Tsung and Liu Kang's roles in this ending. However, it is pretty hard to believe godhood would drive Liu Kang mad, even without the hindsight offered by him actually getting godhood in MK11. This is a nice what-if ending though, and serves as a good resolution of Shang Tsung's rivalry with Liu Kang from his perspective too. Number 17.
Controlled by Quan Chi's sorcery, Scarlet attacked and destroyed Shao Kahn. As Quan Chi's magic subsided, she realized her unwitting role in his plot to bring ruin to Outworld. With Shao Kahn's blood splattered across her body, Scarlet absorbed his immense strength. She used this newfound power against Quan Chi. Brotherhood of Shadow Warriors raced to defend the sorcerer, but their blood only served to make Scarlet invincible. In a battle between sorcery and gore-fueled fighting power, she avenged her fallen master. Having served her purpose, Scarlet disappeared into the shadows, awaiting Shao Kahn's rebirth.
Hideo Kojima should have looked at Scarlet's character and lore design when designing Quiet for MGS5, because Scarlet's skimpy outfit is at least justified to some degree here, which can't be said of Kojima's attempt at more or less the same type of thing 4 years later. As it stands, this ending does a great job at making Scarlet feel like a true member of the Kombat cast, and I do like the unique idea of her being able to get stronger by soaking in the blood of her enemies. Number 16.
Though he had pledged his life to the Lin Kuei, Cyrax left the clan to help the Earthrealm heroes turn back Shao Kahn's invasion. For this act of desertion, he was marked for termination by the new Grand Master, Sector. Surrounded and severely outnumbered, Cyrax prepared to meet his fate when Raiden came to his aid. With him were 100 Shaolin monks. The Lin Kuei were defeated, though Sector was not counted among the dead. Cyrax was offered sanctuary at the Wu Shi Academy, where he has begun a new life as an honorable warrior for peace.
This is a great ending for Cyrax since he fits right in with the enlightened nature of the Shaolin monks. This may actually be Cyrax's best ending for himself too, as while he's gotten his humanity back before, I don't think he's ever found true peace with his mechanical prison like he does here. Number 15.
After the victory over Shao Kahn, Sub-Zero learned from Raiden the truth, that the Lin Kuei were ultimately responsible for the deaths of both Sub-Zero's and Scorpion's families. Enraged, Sub-Zero offered Scorpion a chance to share in his quest for vengeance. With the might of fire and ice combined, they were a storm of vengeful fury as they cut down their foes. Once justice had been done, Sub-Zero and Scorpion disappeared into legend, emerging from obscurity only to avenge the innocent. The forces of darkness will never stop this deadly alliance.
It's not a post-Midway MK game without at least one Deadly Alliance naming reference, and MK9 has two. One happens in the story mode when Shang Tsung and Quan Chi team up, and the other happens here. This ending is an excellent reference to the Shaolin Monks sequel that was in development in the mid-2000s, something Ed Boon confirmed during a Game Informer interview in 2010. That game was going to star Sub-Zero and Scorpion, and I'm guessing it was going to cover the Shinnok era of the plot, possibly ending with boss fights against Quan Chi and Shinnok. God, can you imagine if this actually happened? I would have loved for this to have been a trilogy, with this game getting followed up by one starring Shujinko going through the Deception era of the lore. Alas, that wouldn't happen, but I still appreciate this reference to it nonetheless. Number 14.
Having defeated Shao Kahn, Liu Kang believed he was the only one capable of defending Earthrealm against outside threats. During the invasion, Raiden had been more burden than ally. Brazenly, he demanded the Elder Gods grant him the Thunder God status. In a one-match Mortal Kombat tournament, Liu Kang defeated his former friend and mentor. Liu Kang's request was granted. He was made a god, the new protector of Earthrealm.
If there is one ending that actually does foreshadow a key lore point for the future of the franchise, it's this one. Liu Kang actually does fight Raiden in MK11, and he does become a fire god. However, the details of how that would happen are severely different. I put a premium on endings that foreshadow future plot points, but this one does fall short in comparison to the way Reptile and Blaze's Deadly Alliance ones set up Onaga. Number 13.
Having defeated Shao Kahn, Reptile was feared by all. He forced Shang Tsung to regenerate his Raptor race. The process took agonizing months, but soon Reptile heard the snarls of young broodlings throughout the flesh pits. Eventually, Shang Tsung had created an army of Raptor warriors bred to serve Reptile. They stormed the realm, killing any Tarkatan, Shokan, or Centaur who opposed Reptile's rule. The intoxicating feeling of reuniting with his people blinded Reptile to the suffering of his former comrades. Reptile was home once more.
There's only been a handful of times where Reptile gets to reunite with his Zaterran brethren, and this is the best way it's been done since it provides the Raptor race a chance to get revenge for being pushed to extinction. Number 12.
Sector had dedicated his life to the Lin Kuei. His victories had brought honor to his father, the Grand Master. He had proven himself worthy. It was time to replace his father. In a bold attack, Sector smashed through a company of Lin Kuei guards as he pushed toward the Grand Master's chamber. There he found his father waiting. The Grand Master warned him that wearing the Dragon Medallion brought much power, but at a cost. Sector ignored the warning and slew his father, whose soul burst from his body and flew into the medallion. Sector had finally seized control of the Lin Kuei.
Sector's treason against his father, the Grand Master of the Lin Kuei, is a fantastic direction for this character to go, and I really like the way he's able to hold the Dragon Medallion, which we know can have disastrous effects on the weak-willed through Frost's Deadly Alliance ending. It attests to Sector's power and conviction that he's able to control the medallion with ease, and I'd love to see MK1 Sector from Sub-Zero's ending come into conflict with Sub-Zero over control of the clan in MK13. Number 11.
Shao Kahn had used Rain to crush the Edenian resistance, but had not granted him an army. For this betrayal, Rain drowned the Emperor in his own blood. A grateful Raiden thanked Rain for eliminating the Emperor and saving Earthrealm. His heroics were befitting of a son of Argus. Rain's lost heritage was a revelation to him. That he was a direct descendant of an Edenian god proved his superiority. Power was his by right. His divinity confirmed, Rain's path was clear. He would use Shao Kahn's army to rule not just Outworld, but all the realms. To Raiden's surprise and horror, Rain's first target is Earthrealm.
At the time of MK9's release, this was Rain's best ending, and to this day, it is still pretty good, although I would say that I like his MK11 and MK1 ones better. In each case, Rain saw a major glow up during the NRS era of MK, and he deserved his time in the spotlight. Number 10.
Shao Kahn and Centaur alike were enraged that Baraka, Shao Kahn's trusted enforcer, had turned on their master and killed him just as Earthrealm was within their grasp. But their anger turned to admiration as the lifeless body of Shao Kahn transformed into that of the treacherous sorcerer Shang Tsung. Shang had attempted to claim the realm for himself by posing as Shao Kahn. The deception had not fooled Baraka. He had recognized Shang Tsung's scent and torn out his throat. With Earthrealm finally in Shao Kahn's control, Baraka's loyalty and bold action were rewarded. The Tarkatans replaced the Centaur as the Emperor's favored race.
I actually really like the way NRS approached explaining why Baraka would kill Shao Kahn here. By making it actually Shang Tsung in disguise, Baraka's aggression makes sense, and it's a great ending for him because of how the Tarkatans are rewarded as a result of his actions. Number 9.
Kung Lao had avenged his ancestor's death and saved Earthrealm from Shao Kahn's brutality. In quiet reflection with Raiden at the grave of the great Kung Lao, he touched the modest stone marker. Images of past events, moments of someone else's life flashed through his mind, concluding with a lost battle against Goro. Raiden theorized that Kung Lao had unlocked memories of his past life. The Kung Lao that stood before Raiden was in fact the reincarnation of the great Kung Lao, who had been defeated by Goro 500 years ago. He had accomplished in the present what he could not in the past.
I will always be happy with a Kung Lao revering the great Kung Lao ending, and this is one of the better ways in which that element of Kung Lao's characterization is represented. There is some dissonance with the way Kung Lao is far more cocky in the NRS iteration of his character, but I can suspend my disbelief that he'd act with reverence despite the way he's characterized in Timeline 2.0 for this ending at least. Number 8.
Welcome to prime time, bitch!
Freddy Krueger's bladed hands tore through Shao Kahn. The demonically enhanced weapons had been more than a match for the Emperor's dark magic. Though Freddy had saved Earthrealm, Nightwolf recognized him as an evil spirit, and in a shamanistic ritual, sent him back to the Dream Realm. But that decision proved ruinous. Freddy did not resist. He welcomed a return to immortality. From the Dream Realm, he will again create a nightmare in Earthrealm.
Freddy's ending here is legit great. Nightwolf's mistake at putting him in the dream world and the way Freddy doesn't struggle are excellent features of this ending. And unlike Kratos's, Freddy's ending is properly consistent and reverential to his character while also slotting him perfectly into the MK universe. Number 7.
With Shao Kahn dead, Ermac was no longer bound to him. Anarchy erupted within Ermac as the many warrior souls that comprised his being struggled for dominance. Only one had the strength of will to quiet the chaos. The conflict resolved, Ermac returned to Outworld, determined to reunite with his past. Queen Sindel and Princess Katana were shocked to learn the truth, that trapped among the many spirits within Ermac was their husband and father, King Jared. Though he would never be the Jared they once knew, Ermac would forever serve and protect his queen and the Edenian people.
Ermac being a warrior of light started with deception, and I like the way his characterization is further expanded in this game. This is the first ending in which it's confirmed that Jared's soul resides within Ermac, and that reveal is a perfect justification for why Ermac is able to flip from being a warrior of darkness to one of light. Number 6.
The spell that bewitched Queen Sindel had been broken. She did battle with Shao Kahn and slew him, punishment for the suffering he brought upon her and millions of others throughout the realms. She dissolved the sorcery that bound Edenia with Outworld and began restoring her realm to its former glory. The many races of Outworld were impressed. Not only had Sindel defeated Shao Kahn, but she had shown great leadership in chaotic times. They willingly offered her their allegiance. Under Sindel's governance, the realms of Edenia and Outworld remain merged in spirit.
While this is not consistent with the Sindel of MK11, which is supposed to be the same character, it is consistent with the Sindel of the first timeline, and I like this ending primarily for that reason. If there's one thing I like about MK9's endings in general, it's the way that they provide endings for classic characters that fans have been wanting for ages. And I know, this Sindel ending is essentially the same one from MK3, but it is a bit better because of the way it does a better job at establishing what kind of ruler Sindel is, and how the many races under her rule take to her in lieu of Shao Kahn. Number 5.
Despite telling the world that he was simply doing his job, Stryker was made a hero for saving Earth from invasion. He received both the key to the city and the Congressional Medal of Freedom. Press and paparazzi hounded his every move. His biography spent a year on the bestseller lists. Stryker action figures flew off the shelves and into every young boy's hand. But when approached by Hollywood for the rights to his story, Stryker put his foot down. Never would he allow himself to be portrayed by Johnny Cage.
Man, Stryker might be one of the weaker MK characters, but his MK9 ending is absolutely fantastic. I love the way Johnny Cage looks at the end, and this ending has never failed to bring a smile to my face every single time I see it. This is definitely the best thing to come out of Stryker out of all of his appearances in the franchise. Number 4.
Having finally brought about Shao Kahn's demise, Quan Chi was then tasked with growing the ranks of the Brotherhood of Shadow. Many warriors had perished in Outworld's invasion of Earthrealm. Quan Chi stole their souls and remade them to serve his master, the fallen Elder God. The task completed, Shinnok repaid Quan Chi's service by ordering his execution, thereby eliminating a possible challenger to his rule. Quan Chi had anticipated this act of treachery, however, and resurrected Shao Kahn, the ultimate phantom warrior. With Shao Kahn as his enforcer, Quan Chi struck down the Brotherhood of Shadow and Shinnok. Quan Chi forgives betrayal from no one, not even a god.
Quan Chi keeping a revenant Shao Kahn in his back pocket for Shinnok is perfect, and this ending not only shows Quan Chi's nature as one of the better villains in the MK series, but it also shows the sheer strength of Shao Kahn. Something NRS has lost with MK11 and MK1 is how they portrayed Shao Kahn, since he is canonically one of the most powerful beings in the entire franchise. In terms of raw strength, he's only weaker than Raiden when he's backed by the Elder Gods, Onaga, and Liu Kang. Shinnok knew he couldn't make his play for power for as long as Shao Kahn lived, and the way this ending shows how a brainless Shao Kahn, which would be a shadow of him at his peak, is able to easily destroy Shinnok and his forces is fantastic. This means that this ending is not only consistent with the lore of the franchise and Quan Chi's characterization, but it also references the villain of the next game. Number 3.
Guided by Sento, his ancestral sword, Kenshi destroyed Shao Kahn and saved Earthrealm from Armageddon. But he had not yet exacted revenge on Shang Tsung. The elusive sorcerer had hidden himself somewhere in Outworld. Jax allowed Kenshi access to a newly developed portal that permitted travel among realms. In return, Kenshi agreed to serve the fledgling Outer World Investigation Agency. After countless missions, he finally located Shang Tsung. With a roar, Kenshi plunged Sento through Shang Tsung's chest. The magical sword drew the souls of Kenshi's ancestors into itself, leaving Shang Tsung a withered husk. His vendetta fulfilled, Kenshi left Shang Tsung to die, alone and powerless.
I love this ending, and the only thing that puts it below my number 1 and 2 picks is that I do think the way this event is handled in Deadly Alliance is just a hair more clean. Kenshi is undeniably the fan favorite from the 3D era, so it makes sense that he would consistently show up in most of NRS's games. I'm glad we all got this take on the conclusion of his revenge plot. Number 2.
Shiva had recognized the signs. Her people were out of favor and in decline. The Centaur would soon dominate Shao Kahn's forces, while the Shokan would move inexorably toward extinction. Shiva's act of defiance, her murder of Shao Kahn, made possible a new home for her people among the mortals of Earthrealm, a world free of both Tarkatan and Centaur. With cooperation from world leaders, Shiva secured for the Shokan the continent of Australia. In return, they would protect Earthrealm from future invasions. For her leadership, Shiva was exalted, the most honorable Shokan in their proud history.
This is possibly going to be my most contentious take, because I know a lot of people who find this ending to just be silly or stupid. MK9 is the game that made me start loving Shiva, and I always liked the way her reward for defeating Shao Kahn is to move her entire species of Shokan to Earthrealm to act as that realm's defenders. Australia is also the perfect place for them because if there's any living thing that could actually wrestle a 20-foot saltwater crocodile, it's Goro. The Outback would also feel more like home to them because of its deserty and isolated nature, fitting right in with the way the Shokan are used to living in Outworld. Shiva then being made the leader of her queendom is also great for her characterization and what she values as a Shokan. Number 1.
Shao Kahn's death did nothing to relieve Scorpion's pain. The loss of his kin still weighed heavily upon him. For reasons he could neither explain nor understand, he was drawn to the home of the Shirai Ryu. Standing amid the rubble in solemn contemplation, Scorpion was visited by apparitions of his fallen comrades, who revealed the true mastermind behind their brutal deaths. Enraged, he returned to the Netherrealm. As the spirits of his kin immobilized Quan Chi, Scorpion slew him, finally avenging their deaths.
Would you believe me if I told you this is the first ending in which Scorpion finally gets revenge on Quan Chi? It seems like something that should have happened several games before, but even in Armageddon, Quan Chi eludes Scorpion's wrath. I love that Scorpion finally got the ending that was being built up since MK4 with this game, so I knew pretty early on this was going to be quite high up on the list. Rage and vengeance are core to Scorpion's identity, and this ending does a great job at finally concluding his wrathful quest, while also allowing him to connect to his deceased clan. And that's the video, my guys. What's your favorite Mortal Kombat 9 ending? Let me know in the comments section below, and while you're there, consider liking, sharing, and subscribing for more Rail Deal gaming videos in the future. My MK series will continue with MKX next month and MK11 the month after that, and you definitely won't want to miss those videos. If you have a moment right now, check out one of the videos on the screen. Regardless of what you choose to do, have an awesome day, gamers.